Getting drunk, as students do on Thursday nights, and Friday nights and Saturday nights. In any event, they heard the speech. The first thing they thought of was, I'm going to Vietnam, because the draft was still in existence then. So they came out of the bars, and eventually they worked their way over here over a 3-day period. So the original speech was on a Thursday night. The demonstrations began on a Friday and carried over that weekend. As it happens, I was at an African Studies conference in Chicago, and when we were driving back to Kent, we were listening to a play-by-play, basically, about what was going on here on the radio.
Was it on national news, or?
I'm sorry?
On the radio, like, because you were coming from Chicago, was it a Cleveland station, or was it national news at that point?
1100.
I mean, I know it was national news, but at that point.
50,000 watt clear channel radio
Place. Yeah, you can get that everywhere.
Okay, so it was national news at that point.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And there's a sidebar that's my own personal view, so you should take it as that. The reason why students were killed at Kent, I agree with a colleague who wrote an article that was published in Dissent magazine. And his basic premise was it happened here because there was no history of student activism. So law enforcement didn't know how to deal with student activism. I mean, at places like Wisconsin and Ohio State and Berkeley, where there was a long history of dealing with activism, the police never went on to campus or called the National Guard out with M1 rifles and armed personnel carriers. So other areas had a much greater understanding of how to deal with nonviolent student actions. They could have brought hoses, water hoses, right? But they didn't. They brought loaded weapons. And, everyone who was associated with Kent has paid a price for that over the years, including me. That event changed my career. I came here to set up and run an African Studies program, and I ended up teaching American politics, campaign management, and organizational development. I founded the first campaign management program in the world here. In 1981, we admitted our first student. And my goal was to say Kent State stands for something other than killing students, right? So over the next 10 or 12 years, that's where I changed my focus and did all of that. So on May 4th, 1970, there were students milling around here. It was a beautiful sunny day. The temperature was probably in the mid-70s. The guys were taking their t-shirts off and flexing their muscles, and they were being students. The guard was basically in this area. The students were basically in that area. They had cordoned off the hillside here. So they were trying to keep the students up there and the guard down here. About every 15 minutes, the students would kind of come down this way, and then the guard would start walking up towards them. They would, telling the students to disperse. The students were, they would come down, then go back up, and then come back down. And every time they came down, the guard would move up. And as I said, they cordoned it off, so they were trying to keep the students up that way. On one occasion, nobody still understands what actually happened. There are different stories. The guard didn't stop. Someone in the guard said they thought they heard a shot. At which point, that guardsman knelt, and all the other guards knelt. And pretty soon, the students were going back up the hill to the opposite side of Taylor Hall, the journalism school, and the guard then kept going up the hill. So I'm not sure how to do this comfortably. I guess we should roll our bikes.